There we go. Okay, should be recording it. Okay, and for those of you that just connected 2 seconds ago, please put your title and position and your institution in the chat, and we'll go ahead and get started. I appreciate y'all being here for the last of this semester, the last session that we have for our North Carolina Student Success Center. My name is Hyro McMeekin. Oh, I probably should rename myself. I'll do that. If you don't know how to rename yourself, you can go ahead and do that as well. If you click on the 3 blue dots in your thumbnail, let me just rename myself so that way, for those of you that don't know me, you can see who I am. All right. Okay, so my name is Hyro McMeekin. My pronouns are we, he, him, and his. I like to always explain that just for those that may not be familiar. He, him, and his is how I identify individually. We is how I identify collectively. I'm a big proponent of Ubuntu, meaning that I am because you are and you are because I am. One of my favorite quotes is, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And so I truly believe that in all the work that I do, that it has to be a collective effort to get as far as we possibly can. So again, I can only go as far as you go, you can only go as far as I go. And you know, our threads are interconnected in all kinds of ways. And so that's where I just like to explain that for you, okay? This is psychological safety in the classroom. And so for those of you that don't know me, one of my favorite things to do in the world is read. Probably read more than I probably should. I need to get this dissertation done, but I just can't stop reading other things or whatever. So that's just my across the beer. With that being said, though, I read a number of books last year, read a number of books now, but one book that stood out more than all the rest is this book, The 4 Stages of Psychological Safety. It resonated deeply with me, and then I started trying to figure out how it's applicable to other aspects of my life. And then with all the research that I'm always doing on, you know, how to better support students inside and outside of the classroom, as well as virtually, connected the two, made a Venn diagram, and this is what we came up with was this presentation. So this is my 3rd time presenting this, and I hope that it's going to be engaging. We're going to ask a lot of you to definitely take part in this. We're going to create some resources that we'll then share. We'll save them at the end, share, and then that way you always have them, okay? But we're going to do that together because I'm going to be dependent on all of you. I see some people with some amazing positions and responsibilities in the chat, and I appreciate all of you for putting your title and position in here. And so again, we're going to help each other learn, because I believe the best learning happens when it's peer-to-peer. So that being said, there's a quick agenda. We'll talk about why this matters, talk about the 4 psychological safeties. We'll do a summary, and then we'll wrap it up with question suggestions. In between those, we'll have some a whiteboard that we're going to be working on together so we can share ideas. And then I'll share some other things. If you have any questions at any point, feel free to use the chat, the reaction button, or just turn your mic and camera on, or just turn your mic on and just ask your questions. Any comments you want to make, I welcome them, because again, I want this to be as engaging as possible, okay? So why does this, oh, I went too far. Okay, so why does this matter? So this all started from the term psychological safety. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, Google Project Aristotle was looking at all their teams. So Google has a number of teams working on a number of different projects, right? They have hundreds of teams working on a number of projects. And so what happened was they were trying to figure out like why some teams were outperforming others. And so they did all this like, you know, regressive analysis, look at all these scans of all the things that their teams were doing. They were trying to measure like which teams had the highest salaries, which teams had the most education, where do these people go to school, their ages, their genders, their sexual orientation. They looked at all these different variables. And so after doing all this, they came up to one thing that was determining which teams outperformed others, and that was psychological safety. So when a team had high psychological safety, they were outperforming the other ones like tenfold. And so from that experience, they realized that we have to recreate and replicate this psychological safety to the rest of our teams if we want to get the most out of folks. And so that's where all this started. And so first thing I like to ask folks is that, you know, have you ever, as a student, you know, hopefully everybody has went to school at some point, but as a student, have you ever been in a class that was dominated by fear? Like, did you ever have an instructor, a professor, or something that, you know, that you were either scared of them or scared of the subject matter? And so I want you to think about that for a second. I know I have. especially when in my doctoral program, when I had to take Quant 2, I almost, had some heart palpitations. I'm saying that jokingly, but some of it's real. Okay, so just saying that. All right, so I want you to think about your own experience when you felt like that. And so then I want you to answer these two questions. How did you respond? And how did other people respond? So when you were scared in that class, fear, just worried about, whether you were going to pass or fail, or, be singled out, things of that nature. How did you respond? How did you do that? So does anybody, can I get one volunteer to share either in the chat or just turn your mic off and share that? Oh, okay. That's a great response, Darcy. Appreciate you sharing that. So we came together as a class and each took a turn asking questions. Okay, so really appreciate you sharing that. So looking at some other things, why this matters is that humans, we all have this long to belong, okay? We are social creatures and we all need to be connected to other people in some kind of capacity. Now, you hear some people misuse, oh, I'm an extrovert, I'm an introvert. I don't like talking to people. Extrovert, all I do is talk to people. That has nothing to do with your level of social acuity, okay? It has more so to just do where you get your energy from, right? So, if you're an extrovert, you usually get your energy from others, and that's why you like to do it. If you're an introvert, it's internally, you like to process things before you actually, respond. Both of them have their pluses and minuses, right? So, and I think that, instead of looking at them both as either a positive or negative, understand that, they have their strengths and depending on the context, some work, sometimes they don't. It just really depends on the context. But all in all, we all long to belong. If we didn't, solitary confinement wouldn't be a punishment, right? So again, we have to be connected to other people. Some of us just more than others. I myself identify as an extreme extrovert. I don't know too many strangers. I'll talk to anybody and have any kind of conversation they're willing to have, because that's how I like to learn. So again, we all long to belong, and that's why this matters. When psychological safety is low, you can expect people to shut down. People are going to really concentrate their energy on preserving themselves and making sure that they don't get hurt in the process. And so that's what people do when psychological safety is low. And when it's high, people take more ownership. They're willing to take more risk. They're more willing to learn more. They're more willing to learn more than they have to. So they'll go above and beyond. So if you think about all the subjects that you're interested in, there was some level of high psychological safety at some point that, number one, got you interested into that subject, but then also something happened to make you want to even study even more of it, right? Because, you probably had something to say, hey, you need to read 50 pages of this at some point. And because you love the subject so much, you read a little bit more, right? And so that's just how it is. Or you went and found additional resources. And so that's because there was some level of psychological safety there for you that make you want to do those things. And so that's what we want to try to create for our students, okay? We don't want our students, when our students are coming to us, they're all coming from different walks of life, right? All different lived experiences. And so we want to try to make sure that we're not going to be able to help every single student depending on their situation, but at the same time, what can we do within our environment to make sure that we have the most psychological safety available, so that way they can do perform their best. Okay. So here are the 4 needs for psychological safety. All students want to be included. Okay, so if students are showing up, they want to be there. All right. I don't know too many students that just show up places that they don't have to be. My favorite question I always like to ask folks is, how many of you on this call right now or this webinar like to hang out at the DMV or the dentist if you don't have to? Can anybody raise their hand if they like to, or put in the chat if you're one of those people that like to hang out at the DMV or the dentist? No. Okay. All right. Okay. No. Okay. Yes. So no. So again, when students are there, they care. And so the thing is, a lot of times students just don't know how to, respond. And then a lot of people put this on them like, oh, well, it's the student's fault, that they're not doing this, they're not doing that, and things like that. Sometimes they're just scared and they don't know what to do, and they're looking for guidance. And it's up to us to provide that guidance. And again, if we're providing the high levels of psychological safety, that helps. So all students want to be included. And so the one thing we have to think about is ask yourself these reflective questions. Do you believe all students are equal? And do you treat them as such? Okay. Hopefully you don't believe all students are equal, okay? Hopefully we believe that they all receive equal chance to get an education, but we also believe that, hey, everybody comes with their own lived experiences, their own baggage, things of that nature. And so we're treating them more equitably and doing that in a way to give them what they need to be successful, not giving everybody the same thing, because that doesn't work. Everybody doesn't have the same needs and same wants. Okay, so hopefully we're doing that. But in this sense, are we at least giving them a chance to at least be successful? And so again, that means being equitable as much as possible. Second thing that about psychological safety is all students want to learn. Every student wants to learn, okay? We all have this innate need to want to learn more, so that way we can increase our chances to sustain ourselves, be successful, provide for our family, provide for ourselves, things like that. All right. So yeah, you do have students that their parents make them go to school, and yeah, I mean it's still a choice, because they could be other places and doing other things that they probably shouldn't be doing. But yeah, we just have to do our best to make sure that if they're there with us, we're doing everything we can to create that high level of psychological safety. So all students want to learn, and so without bias or discrimination, do you encourage students to learn and grow? Okay, and so that's a very important question to ask yourself. Are you just teaching them content, or are you teaching that student? And so it's a very important question to ask yourself. And then the other thing too is, do we support them when they lack confidence or make mistakes? Okay, and so we have to think about that as well. A big thing to think about is the coaching. So there's the scientific formula for coaching is this: a 4-to-1 ratio. For every time you give negative feedback or criticism, you should have given four positive opportunities for positive reinforcement and feedback. And so what that means is they say that's what the best coaches do. They do a 4-to-1. So sometimes folks don't say anything to you, and then the first thing they say to you is something negative, like, oh, you didn't do this right. Then it's harder to build that rapport in that relationship. And so they say, like, if you can at least put some things in the bank by letting them know they're doing well in certain areas, whatever it is, make it a positive approach, then they're more likely to succeed. And that's a coaching, but it works everywhere. So if you think about all the times that you've gotten positive feedback from somebody and made a connection, a lot of times it's because they've at least given you four units of positive feedback to one negative. And so you just have to think about that. I see a couple things in the chat. Let me give it 1 second. I have one like this. Yikes. Okay. That's another story, Carol. So, okay, we'll talk about it another time. Regarding to well, Myra, yeah, there's a concept in here. We may have time to get to it about unnecessary paternalism, where there is a point where if you're doing too much for somebody, they're not. It stifles their development, and so we do have to walk that fine line of being encouraging, but at the same time, not trying to do everything for them. And at the same time, I guess there's stretch goals, right? So it's not doing everything for them, but at the same time, still being encouraging, because they may not be getting that encouragement anywhere else. But it's tough. And I mean, again, if it wasn't, then, most of us wouldn't have jobs, right? So it's trying to figure that out, right? Because then a robot could teach them, right? If it wasn't that hard to do. So all students want to contribute in some kind of way. So again, do we allow students to share? So once students need to feel like they belong in that space and they're included, not because of what they represent, but because of who they are. They want to be able to learn. So they want to be able to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. But then after that, they want to be able to contribute what they've learned. And if you let them just do the first two, but you don't give them that third one, then they're going to find another place to be able to do that. So that's where we have to really think about, how are we allowing students to share what they know? And so it's very important. They're not there, and they're not coming in with a blank slate. They don't know anything, especially our students. A lot of them have so many different life experiences. We want to take that andragogy approach where it's like, hey, tell me what you know, and then let me see how I can either help you fill in the blanks and just go from there. So, just thinking about that. Last but not least is all students want to challenge the status quo of their environments if they think things need to change. So if they see something's not right or something could be done better, are we allowing them the space to be able to do that? Or are we one of those people that are just like, it's my way or the highway? Don't you ever challenge me in this classroom? This is my space. Don't ever go against anything I say. And so again, we have to have that educational, cultural humility to be able to, hey, like maybe I don't know everything. And so what can I learn from this process? And by allowing students to challenge, we're not talking about just letting students be jerks or anything like that and just, want to test you because that's what they're used to doing. Anything. We're talking about towards the process of learning. So saying like, hey, I think there might be another way to do this or things like that. And so those are the type of things we want to encourage because that is what gets people the psychological safety. And so, and then, yeah, that last one. So yeah, are we personally prepared to be wrong and have a learning mindset developed? Okay, so we just don't want to sit there and say, I know all, I'm the end all be all. I'm here to learn as well. And so what can you also teach me? And so again, encouraging that challenger safety, get students to the highest level of psychological safety. And if we can get them there, then they're more likely to do more than just what we're teaching them. So let's go through these stages now, okay? And so we'll talk a little bit more and then we'll jump into these activities, all right? So inclusion safety, again, students need to know that they belong in that space and that you want them there, okay? If they don't feel like that, then they're going to be thinking more about why you don't want them in that space versus than what you're trying to teach them, all right? And so the one thing I want you to think about is all of us, and I mean all of us, have felt the pain of rejection. We've all been excluded at some point. But we've also done some excluding. We've also rejected some folks, right? We've segregated ourselves from other people. We've belittled other people. And that's been done to us. We've friended people and we've unfriended people. And same thing to us, right? So everybody's been through this. And so the thing we have to ask ourselves is why after thousands of years are we so technologically advanced, but we're still sociologically primitive? And so why is that, right? So we just need to really, really think about that. So and this is the thing, it's not something that's like naturally that we do because when we think about divisions, things like that, those are things that are taught, okay? One thing I learned a long time ago is said every human is born with two fears. And well, I'm gonna say not every human, but most humans are born with two fears. That's the loud noises and being dropped. Everything else is learned. And so every fear that we have about anything or from somebody or about other people, those are things that we learned or picked up from time. Either we learned it from our parents, our guardians, whoever raised us, our environments, our school, things like that. Anything you're scared of, you've been taught to be scared of that, either through personal experience or the experience that other people have told you to, like, you need to be scared of this or their reactions to things, right? And so that's just what it is. Until we see that fear and learn that fear, you're not going to know it. I'll tell you a perfect example. My 7-year-old son, when he was 5, right at the height of COVID, we were like just outside. There was a little garden snake in my yard. It had died or whatever. And so, he went, picked it up. And, I'm sitting there like, okay, I said, oh, that's pretty cool. Let me take a picture. You take the snake. And so he just picked it up, was looking at it or whatever, like threw it back in the grass or whatever like that. And so then I showed it to my mother, I showed the picture to my mother-in-law. She was like, what are you doing? You can't let him touch snakes. Then he's going to touch snakes and he's going to get bitten. It's like, no. He doesn't know any of that. I told him, I said, now if a snake looks big or whatever like that, or if it's colorful, don't go near it. But I said, hey, but if it's like a little garden snake or anything like that, they're not after you. They're after, crickets and stuff like that. So, don't even worry about it. But I said, but if you see like a big snake or something that's very colorful, move away, let daddy know, and then we'll come look at it together to determine what it is. Okay. And so again, just understanding, but not trying to scare him into anytime he sees a snake, he's going to be frightened. So same thing with this, right? So we all have these things that we feel, these things that we're born with, these things that we're taught. And so processing through all that to try to create inclusive safety, not only for our students, but for our colleagues as well. So this is just a picture I always like to show people when it comes to inclusive safety. And so helping people understand that, and it goes back to what I was talking about, we're all in this together. And so again, the only time we ever like not do these things is when we're taught not to, all right? And so, and again, just why are we so inclusive as children, but then exclusive as adults, right? And so again, a lot of that is just stuff that we're taught from other places. Some of you may admit where you got that taught from, and some of you may not, but it got taught from somewhere, okay? And the other thing is to help people understand that, we have differences. There's always going to be differences. There shouldn't just be barriers, okay? So there's always going to be different people, diversity is a fact, but it's like, what do we do about that? That's, the most important. And so we have the choice to make on how we're going to be inclusive. And so whether that's inclusive by race and ethnicity, age, gender, sexual orientation, ableism, our language, all those different things, okay? What is it? Okay, all right. Oh, okay. We got a lot of things in chat. Okay, I appreciate y'all using this chat because it's catching me. So, but again, inclusion, safety. We all want to be included. We all want to be a part of something. And so, how do we do that? How do we make sure that our students feel included in the classroom? And if we're not doing that for them, whether it's in person or virtually, if we're not doing it, it's going to be so much harder for them to learn. Okay. Herbert Cole said a long time ago, you know, if you can't respect my culture, then I can't respect what you're teaching. All right. And so that's what we have to think about when we're going through these things. Right. So that's why inclusive safety is so important. And again, not just saying like, I like you being here in this class. I want to be able to say, hey, Myra, I really want you to be a part of this class. I want to see your success. Right. Jessica West, I want you to be successful in my class. Not, hey, I just hope all of y'all pass. None of that, right? So again, trying to be as inclusive as possible, and when we can get that, we'll get more about it, right? And then, you know, the thing I always like to have people think about is, think about a time that you were either embarrassed, you know, marginalized, rejected. You know, you asked a question, your teacher ignored you. Your supervisor, your boss, your chair, you had a great idea, and they didn't take you seriously. You know, maybe you got cut from something, an audition you had in a play or a sports team or something like that. Everybody knows what that feels like, right? Or, I mean, what happened if you had a bunch of colleagues and they all decided to go to lunch and they didn't invite you, right? Like, we all know that pain, okay? That pain is real because the same place in the brain that feels that pain is the same place that feels physical pain. It's no different from breaking your leg. All right. So yeah, one pain may be more, a lot more than the other, but there's still pain in that same area of the brain. And so that's what so we know that, and we know what that feels like. Why do we continue to do it? So we need to try to figure out again with our students, how can we limit that as much as possible and make them feel like they are supposed to be there. Okay. And a lot of times, you know, we judge people based on, you know, their status, how much money they have, how much they look like, how much money they have, things of that nature. And so, you know, again, trying to limit how we judge people based on their worthiness or what we think, you know, what we think they're worth, and it has nothing to do with the two. I mean, those two things have nothing to do with each other. So how do we create inclusion safety? So now let's go to the whiteboard. Whoops. Okay, can y'all see the whiteboard? Yes. Can everybody see the whiteboard? Yes, no? Yes, okay, great, great. Okay, all right, so what I would like to do is at the top, you should see something that says more or annotate. It should say, no, all of you should have annotate now. So can everybody see their annotate button at the top? Yes, no? Okay, no looking, okay. Okay, so Jill, you see the annotate button? Wait, did I did? All right, hold on, let me disable and then enable again. Okay, can everybody see it now? Should be on your screen. Let me see if y'all can see this. Can y'all see this thing up here? Oh, that's right, I'm sorry. You got to go to view options. I'm sorry. I keep forgetting that I'm the host, so I have different things. Okay. Can everybody go to view options? I'm sorry. I totally forgot this. Okay. All right. So now with view options, if you click on annotate, if you click on text, it allows you to start typing. And so you just double click inside this on this whiteboard and you can start typing. And so what I want to like do is let's start coming up with some ideas of how we can do this. So how can you create inclusive safety in the classroom? So if you teach face-to-face, what are some ways you can do that? And then below that line, if any of you teach online or hybrid, what are some ways that we can create inclusive safety in a virtual space? So if y'all can start coming up with some ideas, we'll do this for about, let's see, we'll do this for about 7 minutes, unless we get done faster than that. So 7 minutes, if you come up with any ideas, anything that you currently do to create inclusive safety either in the classroom or online, put that on here. And what we're gonna do is once we all get this stuff in here, we're gonna save this. And then when Gracie sends the presentation and the recording out to everybody that registered, they'll have this and you have something that like as a resource to go back to, okay? Okay, thank you. I don't know who that first person is, but divide into groups, then visit with each group to invite conversation. Yes, great way to include inclusive safety. So thank you, Jamie, for yeah, if you hover your mouse around, you should see something that says view options, and you should see something that says annotate. Pleasant. Whoever wrote pleasant atmosphere, can you go a little bit deeper for me? Like, what do you mean by pleasant atmosphere? Feedback in the discussion board. Okay. Wait, y'all can't see the whiteboard? Do y'all see is William? Can everybody else see the whiteboard? Okay, so Jay, you said there were a lot of teachers that act like God. Okay. I've had some of those teachers too. So Myra, you can't see the whiteboard. Okay. Let me see here. You see the board, but not the comments. Why is this thing not working now? Okay, I don't know why some of you are seeing this and some of you are not. Darcy, I appreciate that. I'm kind of frustrated right now though, because I just can't why some of you can see it and some of you can't. It's not letting me do this either. Is it not letting me let me try something. I don't know what's going on here. This is not supposed to be. I've used this thing like 1,000 times. I don't know why it's giving me problems right now. Okay. We use Moodle Open LMS. I have a rule set if a student misses a week, and I can tell the students. Okay, that is really good. Okay, and then if the student's having trouble, take some one-on-one time. Okay. Just tells. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm sitting here. I'm telling you, I was so excited about this because I was like, we do this all the time, and I can't believe it's not working right now. No, let me stop share and let me bring it back. Oh, there we go.
There
okay.
It is.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I was doing that. Can y'all see it now? Okay. I guess I had to cut it out and cut it back on. I don't. You gotta love it. I'm telling you. So. All right, let's see what we got here. So, all of you can see that. So yeah, inclusive vocabulary, active listening. Yes, yes, yes. Take some one-on-one. Strong and concrete inclusion statement on the syllabus along with expectations. Yes, triple yes. Encourage students to ask questions, invite students to clarify answers just as you are modeling here. Oh, that's a, okay, yeah, thanks. And then yeah, one-on-one with student when you can. And this is the other thing I try to tell people too. A lot of times it doesn't have to be because I know some of you teach like a lot of sections, okay? You got a lot of students. It doesn't necessarily have to be you that makes that connection. Like it can be, if your college has some other supports like advisors and success coaches, things like that, navigators, you can use them. But the other thing is to try to empower students to help each other as much as possible. I know I'm always a big proponent of trying to create community and trying to get folks to work with each other and help each other. And the way I try to convince people is like, these are the people that you're going to be working with in your community, you know, so you want to make sure that they, you know what they're doing, so you know what you're doing, and then we have a better community. If you're just trying to always be out for yourself and not worried about them, you know, sometimes that can backfire, and then, you know, you can't find a mechanic, you know, or you can't find a nurse, or you can't find whatever it is, a plumber, whatever you're looking for. You know, you can't find somebody to transfer to those colleges to get some of those degrees that we need, right? So again, that's why it's so important. Yeah, micro affirmations are very, very important. Yeah, so thank y'all for doing this, and I'm sorry it didn't work as well as it should have, but we'll do better on the next one. Okay, so let me stop this share. Let me do a new share. Oh, let me do a new share. Go back to. Okay, can everybody see my screen again? Yes, you see the blue screen? Okay, all right, cool. All right, so let's look at some other things, and these are so I've done this presentation a number of times at my college with the adjunct faculty and full-time faculty, and so these are just some of the things that they shared that you see at Google. There we go. Is that better? You see it now? I'm sorry, I'm having all these technical difficulties. Can y'all see inclusion safety on the thing? Yes, no? Okay, all right, cool. All right, so so some of our instructors, these are some of the things that they shared. You know, leaving assumptions at the door as much as possible, not trying to figure out what students going to pass, which ones are not from the jump. The other thing, pronounce the names correctly. So learning people's names and then learning how to say it correctly goes a long way. Our names are our first presents that we ever get. And so they mean a lot to us. And when people can say our name, it makes us feel better because that means you matter, right? Because you only remember the names of people that matter to you. And so again, as much as we can, try to remember people's names and then also how to say it correctly, because especially for those folks that have uncommon names like myself, it means a lot when somebody says my name correctly. A lot of times when we're thinking about examples and stuff that we want to do in class, not just going to the same names, the same types of folks all the time, like switching it up. You know, how many of you have ever used somebody in a wheelchair, for example, right? How many of you ever used a transgender student as an example? How many of you ever used any other, like, just basically how diverse are your examples of the people you're trying to explain, the stories you're reading, the problems you're trying to solve. So what are those things, and like how complex do they get for you? Okay, so that's what we really need to keep in mind. So definitely having that, because that allows other folks to not only learn about people that are different from them, but then also normalize that, and so they're more accepting and more inclusive when they get out into the workforce. Acknowledging differences in a positive light. So again, differences are differences. It doesn't mean one is better than the other. It just means they're different. And so just helping people understand that. This is one that I really liked from one of our instructors, is not assume that English is everyone's native language. So again, just not assume that everybody speaks the same language, but actually trying to get to know your students to find that kind of stuff out. Smiling without showing bottom teeth, because bottom teeth means you're faking it. So if right now all of you were to try to smile, if you're showing your bottom teeth, you're probably faking it. So you want to try to have a genuine smile, be authentic with it, okay? This is another one that especially for folks that teach online or virtually, having like some different back channels where, maybe it's not in your LMS, but different things that you can share and send out messages, because it also humanizes you for the students that you're teaching. So, definitely doing things like that. And then this is another idea somebody had, was, sharing on a blog, everybody's favorites. So maybe you ask for everybody's favorites at the beginning, and then you share those things periodically. It also allows students to connect. I used to do this thing called the whip around, where at the beginning of every class, we would ask one question what's your favorite ice cream? Everybody had to like fire off what their favorite ice cream was, and we went around the room. And so then that way, when somebody said, your favorite flavor, you automatically made a connection in some way. And so that took all of like 30 seconds to do around the class of like 20, because they had to like hurry up and say whatever, that one thing was, and so it was just really trying to help people like really make connections across the rooms. Maybe it's the person sitting next to them that likes the same thing they like. And then, now they have something to talk about. So again, just trying to make sure that, they feel more of a community, it's inclusive. And so that's what we're shooting for. All right. So any questions about inclusion safety? And these are just some examples. I got a bunch more. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, I can get you a whole bunch more. These were just a microcosm of all the different things, some things you can do to be more inclusive in your classroom. And again, if you can be more inclusive, then you're ready to move to the next level, which is learner safety. So I want you to think about something again. If you were to walk into the average classroom and you saw students struggling, and you were put in charge of that class, what would you expect from those students? I want you to think about that. So you walk into an average classroom that's struggling, you're put in charge, what would you expect of those students? And so the default that most folks go to is they start thinking like, oh, like, what are they learning? How are they learning? Things like that. And, you focus on all these like tangible things. But one tangible that we definitely need in this sort of abstract is hope. We need to like remind ourselves that I know you got to have that belief in yourself that you can do something with that class, right? But if you come into that class and you see they're struggling, you're like, oh, they're just going to struggle. I'm just here to finish out the semester. That's all that's going to happen. But if you go in there and say like, I think I could turn this around, and you tried it, yeah, you may not be able to turn around completely, but you can still make a difference. And that goes a long way. And so that's why learner safety is so important, because a lot of times people come into like certain spaces and they may say like, oh, I want all my students to be here, but now they're not willing to like really work with them so they can learn, right? And so they're like, not allowing them to make mistakes. They're not allowing them to learn from their mistakes. They're not allowing them to fail and things of that nature. So we have to really remember that. And the thing is here, especially with learner safety, your job is not to show how much you know. Your job is to show how much you can adapt to learning. That's what's encouraging, okay? Students are never going to know what you know, so because they didn't go to school like you did, right? They're still learning. But at the same time, if they can see that you're willing to adapt what you know and learn how to learn, and you can role model that for them, it's going to go a lot further than just sharing them all the facts and stuff that okay? So that's why it's so important to think about that. And then, that builds creativity. And that's what, we want to see a lot more of that too, because that's so important, as we think about what's going on in this day and age. So quick question, I want you to think about, have you ever had a teacher, instructor, professor that had more confidence in your ability than you did? Had more confidence in your ability to learn than you did? Has anybody ever had that? Okay, we got a couple of yeses. I've had that as well, right? So I had a teacher that, really believed in me. So high school, I did not take it seriously. Barely graduated, just didn't think I was gonna ever, thought I was just gonna go into the military like my dad, and didn't really need to, I just needed to finish school, didn't have to do really good at it, right? My parents always told me like, just don't bring home no D's and F's, and I didn't do that because I always wanted to play sports, and you had to at least have a 2.0 to do that. So I did the bare minimum to get that 2.0, and that's what I did, all right? So with that being said, it wasn't until my senior year that I had a lady named Ms. Roach that I turned in a paper that we had to do, and she didn't grade it. She gave it back to me and said that I could do better. And I was like, okay. And so I did it, I redid it, gave it back to her. She said, this is good, but you can do better. And I said, then I was like, what's going on with this lady? Like, what do you mean I can do better? And she was like, you're always participating in class. I see the look in your eyes when we're discussing different stories, things like that. She said, you can do better. I know you can. So you're gonna do it. And she said, and I don't care how long it takes, but you're gonna write me a good paper. And I said, then I was like, oh crap, like this lady's like serious. And so wrote it like 3 more times and got it back like 3 more times. But by the time we finished, she said, just so you know, Now you know that it's going to take you about 5 drafts to turn in something really good, and you can do it because you just did it just now. She said, but now you just need to be able to do this on your own without me telling you to. And I was like, oh man. And so after that, like I just dedicated myself to whatever that lady wanted. I would have ran through a brick wall if she would have told me to, right? Because number one, she showed that she believed in me. Number two, she showed me that, hey, even though I wasn't doing the greatest, that I was capable of more. And once I was able to realize it, that was the first teacher that ever really did that for me. It was like, wow, like this is what this feels like. So, and you know, that really encouraged me to learn more and want to do more. And so I say all that to say that, you know, and this is the other thing I like to point out too. She didn't look like me, you know, she was a, you know, an older lady that identified as white. And so she didn't look like me. But the thing was, I felt like she believed in me. And so I always tell people that because sometimes I get caught up, you know, people get caught up like, oh, well, you know, we have to have students that look, you know, we have to have instructors and teachers that look just like our students. Yes, that helps. And it does provide instant capital, but that's not the only way that we can connect with other people, okay? When somebody knows that you believe in them, it doesn't matter what they look like. If they know that you believe in them and that you're trying to help them and you believe in their success, it doesn't matter what they look like. They're gonna, you know, you're gonna want to make that connection with them. And so again, I always tell people because sometimes I get people go, oh, well, you know, my students don't look like me and blood. Has nothing to do with it. If they know that you care, that's what matters to them. So that learner safety, again, when you have somebody that believes in you, you know, think about what that does to your motivation and effort. You know, and think about what level the next level you get of performance when you have somebody that believes in you, right? So again, and this is the thing, learning is emotional. It's an emotional endeavor, right? So when we are emotionally connected to somebody, you know, because you'll learn more from somebody you love than somebody you don't, right? And so that's why it's so important. Um, okay, I have to look that up. Thank you, Carol. But again, that's why it's so important that if we can, as much as possible, make those connections, it goes so much better for not only us, but for our students as well. Because again, they're going to come back to us and want to, you know, if they see that we put that much belief in them, because chances are a lot of our students don't get that. And so when they can get that from us, it goes so much further. So that's why we want to do those type of things. So how much likely are your students to participate if they don't feel like there's an environment of respect and permission, like permission for them to fail, permission for them to make mistakes? Just thinking about that. These are some questions that, you know, people that don't feel like that, these are the type of things they're asking themselves. Like, you know, if I make a suggestion or I don't know something, what will that cost me? Not only in the eyes of my peers, but, you know, the person that's teaching me. Can I be myself? So, you know, if I don't know something, am I allowed to say that out loud? Will I look stupid? Will people laugh at me? These are all the things that are going through people's brains, right? When they're engaged in certain things that, you know, may be new to them. And so will they ignore me? And so the last thing you want to ask yourself is, how many students do you know do well academically while they're suffering emotionally? Chances are it's not a lot. It's not a lot. Again, we all long to belong. And so again, we need to be able to know that we're in an environment where we can make mistakes. We won't be ostracized for them. We won't have to face retribution because we got something wrong. And when we can get that type of environment going, we're going to do a lot better. So going back, let's make sure this works now. All right, share. Let's try this. All right, so let me see if this is working again. Yes, okay, it should be working. All right, so back to annotation. If you go back to view options and click on view options for annotation, if you can start putting in here, what are some ways we can create learner safety in the classroom? How can we do that in a virtual environment? So if you could do that, let's put some examples, some things that work for you, some ideas you may have. Remember, there's no such thing as a bad idea. Every idea may not make sense to you, may make sense to somebody else, and it may spark them to do something else. So that's why we want to put everything out there, okay? So again, whatever ideas you come up with, if you can click on that text button, go ahead and double click in there and just start typing. And we'll do another 6 minutes for this. So if everybody can at least come up with one in one of those spaces. How can you create learner safety in the classroom or create it virtually? Okay, encourage discussion related to topic, listening to students. And what do you mean by listening to students? What does that mean? Okay, Charlene said, yeah, I'm just puts this in here as well. Okay, they coming in now. Okay. Don't trash people if they get the wrong, if they don't get the right answer, right? I tell us the only stupid question the one you don't ask, right? So okay, yeah. Let's see what else we got over here. We got having humor with calling out the roles. Sometimes I ask random questions to get laughter. Okay, all right. Having a safe introduction to the class. Can anybody go a little bit deeper on that? Have a safe introduction to the class. Celebrate wrong answers, and that means growth. Have a forum for them to ask questions to help each other. Yes. Okay, so somebody said somebody asked, that whole self-care component, right? And again, I go back to it doesn't have to necessarily just be you all the time. I know there have been instructors that have given like extra credit or for times that they've helped their classmates with something. So that way it doesn't always fall on the instructor to provide all that. Maybe you give, maybe there's something tied to their grade when they're helping each other. And so, when I've had like, anytime I've been in a class with, there's a handful of students that are like light years, ahead of the rest, then, the way I challenge them is like, okay, so this information, it inside and out. You've had the ability to either study it or the privilege to have certain resources to learn this information. How can you make sure that everybody around you though is doing that as well, right? And so just really trying to encourage them to help support those students. And so that does help. And again, putting that on those other students where, if they're capable of handling that and can actually reach out to others, then let them do that. And, allow them to, that's their learning process is, okay, this information, but what good is it if you're the only person that knows it? So like, how can you encourage others to do that as well? So then that way it's not always on you, because we do have to, you can't pour from an empty cup. So we do have to take care of ourselves. So yeah, that's very, very important. So yeah, appreciate that you were seeing that you're seeing this human too. Yeah, so definitely. Okay. Create an environment for safe expressions of ideas. Okay. Send a direct email, welcome each student to the course. Yes, you can do that as well. Something that I used to do was called the 4x4x4 activity. And so what I would do at the beginning of a class, I would ask students what their four greatest strengths were, the 4 things they found challenging, and then the 4 things that they valued the most. So I would have them fill this out. They would get it from at the beginning, the first or second class, and then I would just keep that with me, put on a spreadsheet. And then what I would do, that's what I did at first. And then I moved over to Google Forms where they could just type it in. It's already in a spreadsheet. You do less work. So what I would do is take those values and the things that were good at and the things that they felt like was super challenging to them and incorporate that in my feedback anytime I was grading something, right? So if somebody put faith, family, money, and education were their 4 things that they valued the most, then anytime they turned in an assignment and it was really good, especially if it was a big assignment, not necessarily a low stake assignment, but it was a big assignment that I would use when it was like, hey, you could tell that your faith got you through this because you put a lot of good work into this, or, hey, your family's going to be so proud of you for the work that you're doing. And so anytime I could use that same language back that they've already given me, that's going a long, long way with students. And so, again, any major assignments, things like that, you say that kind of feedback, I promise you will hook them in. But and even if it's a little assignment, if you're using it, as long as you're consistent with it, you'll be fine. But again, just using those same words that they already gave me to give it back to them, that's going a long way. And so we'll go ahead and stop this now, and then let's go back. But I do appreciate y'all putting this. And again, we're gonna save these and give these back to you. Yeah, it was the 4 greatest challenges, 4 things you value the most, and your 4 greatest strengths. Yeah, so 4 by 4 by 4. And then I just collect that, again, share it with them little by little, their challenges, just talking about those things. So again, that's just something that I do. And it always built great rapport with students because again, I don't know if it's by accident or whatever, but I think sometimes students forget that they do stuff for you. And so I would have students, they're like, I really appreciate that feedback you gave me. And I'm like, I'm just using the words you gave me, but I didn't say that. But, it's like, you gave me those words. So it's just, I'm just giving it back to you. And so, reflecting that back, it goes a long way. And I don't know if they just forgot that they told me those things, but it happens. So, and, maybe because they got other classes, they're not thinking about everything they do. But yeah, it's just a great way to get feedback. For folks. And, again, if you're speaking their language and that's the way to speak their language, it goes a long way. Let's see here. Okay, so let me stop share. Let me go back. Is that it? No, that's not it. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's look at some other ways to do this. And so again, these are like from some of our instructors at this college. Have them work together to create solve problems. Ask students on the first day of class what their fears and concerns are pertaining to the course subject. Some of y'all teach some pretty tough classes just by reputation. So again, how can you address that before the class even gets started? I think that's an amazing way. I do a lot of DEI work, a lot of DEI work. And so one of the first things I do for most of my stuff is, acknowledge people's fears. And so really just talk through like what that looks like and why they're there. And usually I found great success in when people can DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so thanks, Jamie, for jumping out there and being courageous enough to ask that question. So when I do a lot of work trying to help people understand that and why it's so important, the first things I do is have them understand like why they may be scared of it. And so once we talk through those fears and go through there's some frameworks out there that I show them. Once we get past that, there's, it lets that guard down and they're more willing to like talk through it and engage, have conversations about it. In my experience, a lot of times when people don't want to talk about something, it's usually because they're scared. They're scared to make mistakes on that subject matter, that topic. They're scared of what they may look like. It goes back to that learner safety, right? So that's an easy way for me to create learner safety is by addressing those fears. So again, I really love that right there. Encourage them to work together on low stakes assignments. Say something nice no matter what. So that's that asset-based thinking. So again, even if somebody turns in something, is late, whatever, not chastising them for that, but hey, thanks for at least doing this, right? Because this is more than, I was going to get. So thank you for at least doing this. And again, hopefully that little bit of positivity can grow and get that momentum going in the right direction. This is a really good one as far as, yeah, and I mean, everybody has their own thing, with late assignments and things like that. I mean, I know some people that will never take late assignments. I know some people that take it with a penalty. Some people don't care. They'll take it anytime. It just really depends on who you work with. But I don't think it should be set across the board. I think it should be, again, an equitable approach because you never know. Sometimes people have legitimate reasons why they're turning late assignments, right? If I'm working a 40-hour-week job, I'm trying to take a bunch of classes. I may have some people at the house that I'm taking care of. Maybe we have to share a computer. Maybe my assignments will be late, but at least I'm trying to get them in. But then there's other people that, maybe they have all the time in the world. So maybe they shouldn't get a late assignment. And again, I think it's just really based as much as you can on the equitable approach. But yeah, it's just, it really just depends on the student situation, things like that. But I think you got to get to know them to really understand that. But yeah, let's see here. Okay, gotcha. All right, and then making videos, so showing that cultural humility, that academic humility of saying like, hey, you're gonna talk about, excuse me, allergies. All right, so having people like show that humility of like the lowest grade they ever received, like making a video of that, so students can see like, oh, thank you, Karen. So they can see that, they're not alone if they do get a low grade, things like that. Talk about their own struggles. I was at talking to a college one time, and there was a lady in there that taught statistics, and she said she would always tell her students that she failed statistics 3 times in college before she actually finally passed it a fourth time. And because she failed it so much, she developed a love for it and appreciation for it that she actually changed her major to statistics and went to learn more. And that's why she teaches it now. And I thought that was like the most amazing story about perseverance, because I was like, wow, like you got your tail whooped by that thing that many times. And then you decided like, I'm going to conquer this by majoring in it. I was like, that is some real courageous stuff. I don't think I could do it. But I was just glad. But she said, but that really, resonated with her students, that the ones she was trying to help. So I always thought that was interesting. Give students a way to communicate with you privately, be accessible, get out of your way to speak to each of them. So again, acknowledging folks, making sure that you're not only acknowledging them, that's inclusive, but also acknowledging their mistakes and then what they can be learning from it. And again, not, bombarding them with all kinds of feedback, but again, giving them what they need when they need it and helping them through, right? So that's learner safety. All right, so contributor safety. This is the third one. And so according to the book, it said that most organizations, most people, they'll get those first two pretty easily. So they'll be included. They can come to a space. They're allowed to learn. But this third one is when it gets very, very difficult. And that's when they're allowed to give back. Okay. So we all have a need to want to be able to contribute, be able to give. And so a lot of times, folks don't think about the importance of folks being able to give back. And so in a classroom, that becomes vital because that's a way for students to showcase what they've learned. And so, whether you use Bloom's or Finks or Gagne, however you measure your learning and your outcomes, just making sure that we have an opportunity for students to share what they know, how they know it, and measuring their learning and assessment based off of that. Sometimes folks come in with a set thing, like you either know this or you don't, and that's it. But not everybody does everything the same. I'll give you a personal example. I was in a class one time and I had a student sitting in the front row. I was giving a lecture about, and I spent like a week working on this lecture about how to help them learn how to calculate a GPA and all the different GPAs and stuff that they would know how to do. Going through all this, and there was a student up front that was drawing. And I'm sitting there like, I know this kid ain't drawing while I'm up here like trying to give him all this help and trying to help him through and things like that. And so I finally went up to him. Now, I didn't do it in front of the whole class, but I went up to him and I was like, hey man, like, how you gonna be drawing while I'm sitting there trying to help you and trying to teach you how to, do this work or whatever. And he was like, no, I'm taking notes. And I was like, what? I was like, you ain't taking no notes. I see you drawing. He said, no, that's how I take my notes. And so then he was able to sit there and tell me everything I said based off of this elaborate picture that he drew. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, I ain't had to eat so much crow in my life, okay? So again, just understanding that everybody does things differently. As long as they're getting it, that's what should count. And so we just need to be able to measure that. And we need to really, really, really think about what we're allowing them to contribute in those spaces, okay? So that's just something we need to really, really do, because if we're not doing that, then all we're doing is asking them to regurgitate what we've taught them. That's not doing them too much of any good. We need to be able to know how they can apply that to whatever they're trying to learn, especially long-term. Something that I like to talk about with contributor safety is when we're thinking about allowing students to learn is checking our facial expressions, because a lot of times people aren't really aware of how they look when students are trying to like show us what they know or teach us something. And so if you look at these faces, think about your face in general. And so I would highly advise you to maybe, go look up some YouTube videos or some things that, you may not necessarily agree with, and then record your face or look at a mirror and just see the expressions you make when you hear those things. That's probably the same faces you're making when students are trying to, contribute and participate in your class. And so you want to be more cognizant of it. Some of us, have, more happy dispositions than others, but you definitely want to check that, because again, students read that kind of stuff, and then that determines whether or not they want to contribute any further, okay? And so just thinking about the nonverbal cues that you give off and how sometimes that may silence a student, they may never want to like share again. It may make them feel rejected, humiliated. You looking at them a certain way, maybe punching, and you may not even be thinking about something, but the way you looked at that student may give that impression to them. And so that's why we have to be as cognizant as possible about the way we look at students. So no matter if and this goes for our learner safety as well. So, if they get something wrong or get something right, like what are our facial expressions telling them? And so again, you just want to be mindful of that as much as possible. The thing is like, depending on how we're treated, we all have this internal regulator. And so when we're in a classroom with students and we get certain reactions, that either tells us to be quiet, sit down, don't contribute, do what you're supposed to do, or do the bare minimum to get out of that class, or it tells us like, hey, keep going and give more, okay? And so the more we can give, the more we can learn. And so that's why that's so important for psychological safety, okay? So definitely as much as possible. And so again, the way this works as well, the more time you spend with your students, the more you get to know them, the more they're going to be able to contribute, and not only contribute to the overall academic environment, but contribute to their own learning. And so that's why that's so important with psychological safety. So again, just really thinking about that. So going back, let's do this. This is our third time. We got 2 more times after this. Here and okay, so same thing, view options, annotate. Let's think about how we can create contributor safety in the classroom or online. If y'all can do that, we'll do that for probably 6 more minutes. 6 minutes, if y'all can think about some ways to do that. More words like stupid and sarcastic tones. Yes. So David, I see something in the comments about this ungrading. I actually attended a webinar a couple weeks ago, and they were talking about to increase performance for students was to change the grading. And they said currently the way most of our grading scales are set up is that you have 30 points to be successful out of 100, and then you have 70 to be unsuccessful. And so it said that why do we put so much weight into being unsuccessful? So what they did was they redid the GPA, it's called GPA grading, where instead of students getting points towards the assignment, they would get a certain GPA. Because if you think about our GPA, a 0 is the lowest you can get, whatever, but it goes from 0 to 4, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 chances to pass something. And so that's how they did. So they give you a GPA, and then pretty much for each assignment, and then they average the GPA across, and that's the grade you come out the class with. And so I think it's like a 3.3 to a 4.0 is an A. I think it's a 2.7, 3.3 is a B. And then it was like a 2.7 to like a 2.2 or something was a C. 2.2 to like 1.7 was a D, and then everything below that was an F. And so that gave students more incentive to want to pass the course versus trying to trying to make sure they get at least 70 points or whatever like that. So they say when they started doing that, their success rates went up. And then the way they also measured it was the sequential class that came after it, like their second level English, those students were still doing really good. So that's how they know it was working. So that may be something coming out soon. That was just something that I saw that I thought was pretty interesting. So set up an etiquette guidelines and enforce them. Oh, etiquette online. Okay, gotcha. Sorry, I was doing it. Humor, take the edge off and get students relaxed. Yes, if you have that ability to be humorous, you either got to be really good at it or really bad at it for it to be effective. Can't be somewhere in the middle. So just thinking about that. And when I'm thinking about bad, I'm thinking about, like, for myself, telling dad jokes, stuff like that. Usually get students to be like, oh, this guy, but then they accept me because they're like, that was a corny joke, but you're okay. Yeah, allow students to create in the rules, guidelines, group norms with sharing in class. Yes, please, 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 yes. And for those of you, especially for virtual contributor safety with those discussion boards, just please, please, please make sure that you are setting guidelines and expectations for the discussion boards, because a lot of students that report ever being marginalized in class, it's happening in those discussion boards because nobody sets the expectations or the norms that they're going to follow. So as much as possible, especially for inclusive safety, if you want more contributor safety, make sure that you set the guidelines for students to do that. But you can have them set the guidelines and then follow, so that way they're taking part in their own learning. All right, so we'll move on from here, and we'll go to our last one. Hold on here. Let's see. Yes. Okay. And so here's some other ones from the instructors at my college. Support student volunteers. Let students lead some of the learning activities. Formally study, you already said that. Let students share study techniques after a test. So after a test is done, say like, hey, this is what I was able to do. Hopefully that encourages other students to maybe replicate some of those same things. Give students the opportunity to express themselves. So again, it doesn't have to be the same way that you're teaching in that class, giving them that space and opportunity to do so. Have them create their own assessments, because they're going to take more responsibility and more accountability for their learning. And then again, ask them to create review games for learning test material. So if there's some way that they can do that and teach each other, again, that allows them to give to the space. And when they're able to give to the space, they're more likely to take part in it. I have a colleague, he always tells me, anytime you're trying to make some cultural changes, the metaphor he always uses is, the best way to get people to eat your chili is to let them help you make it. So same thing with this contributor safety is very, very important. And sometimes that's hard, but as much as possible. Sometimes some faculty members don't think also is that maybe you get a past student to help you create some work. Then that way you can help them by, saying, if they're applying for something, they can put on their resume they helped you, develop some curriculum for your courses, something like that. They can give you some ideas on how people like to be taught. So you can ask, your past students, for this type of information. And then when you tell your new students, you can say like, hey, I had a previous student help me develop this curriculum, to make it more meaningful to all of you. That goes a long way, because it is encouraged students like, oh, if I do well, maybe they'll let me do that as well, right? So again, it just gives you another chance to build some rapport with the student. So the last one we want to talk about is challenger safety. And so this is the by far hardest level to get to. And this is always by far the hardest thing to come up with when we start talking about in the classroom, okay? So how do we allow students to, if they feel like something can be done better, if something's not quite right, what are some ways that they can encourage, what are some ways that we can encourage them to take more responsibility for their education, okay? And so we have to think about like what happens when we don't have challenger safety. All of us remember a time where we tried to give an idea and we got chastised for it, whatever it was, and then we never wanted to, try to challenge anything again, right? And so the thing we have to remember is that if there's no cover, there's no candor. All right, so people are less likely to share what they really think about something if they don't feel like, it's not going to be taken as a way to try to refine something, but as an attack. And so we have to think about that. And so when we all of us have felt that at some point in our life where we felt like we were trying to make something better, somebody took it as a threat, and then they went at us, and we were like, oh, I'm not doing that again, right? So again, make sure that we're not doing that in our classroom. And the way to think about this is, here's another question for you to think. When's the last time you tried to cover up a mistake? And what made you want to do that? So the last time you made a mistake, what made you want to try to cover it up? And what motivated you to do that? And I got stories for days of all the times I've made mistakes, because it is, I feel like it's just part of my learning cycle. there was a time in my previous position that I was responsible for putting the registration holds and stuff in place. And I didn't do something right with the coding, and it crashed the entire system across the college. And so, yeah, that was not a fun experience. IT was not happy with me. And so I had to go in there because they had to go back in and then redo all the reports that were automatically being sent because it crashed all of them. Lo and behold, a week later, I called myself trying to do something new. I was like, okay, well, I know not to do that again. I'm gonna try this time. And when I did it, it crashed the system again, okay? And when I tell you that there was this particular person in IT that came and chewed my head off, they gave me everything. They said, if you ever touch the system again and you mess it up, we're going to take all your rights and privileges away. And I was like, good God. I was like, I don't even want to do it, but I had to do it because it was part of my job. But you best believe that I was like scared to death because I was like, man, if I don't do this right, I might lose my job. And so with that hovering over me, how impactful do you think I was in my work with thinking that, oh, I was about to, do that. So, so Jamie, I currently work at Central Carolina Community College in Sanford, North Carolina. It's about 45 minutes southwest of Raleigh. And before that, I worked at Durham Tech Community College in Durham, North Carolina, which is 20 minutes west of Raleigh. So, I crashed the system twice. I got called everything but a son of God. So it was what it was. But I learned from it. And so, luckily I was able to go. And for a long time, I felt like, oh man, I just don't know what I'm doing. But it was like, it was an honest mistake. And so with that being said, I made sure that anytime anybody makes a mistake, I always try to look, if it's not going to kill anybody, and if it's not going to cause, irreparable damage, then, it's okay. Like, yeah, we all make mistakes. And so I was glad I had those experiences, because now anytime I'm working with anybody, I think that way. And especially in the classroom, it's like, okay, look, I want you to challenge me. I want you, because I don't know it all and I'm gonna make mistakes as well. But being able to model that goes a long way with students, and especially in their learning. So with that being said, our last one. Let's do this last one. And let me stop share. And we'll do this for about 5 minutes. And then after that, we'll wrap it up with a summary. And then we'd love to hear some more if y'all are willing to share. Share, there we go. Okay. So same thing. What are the ways that you create challenger safety in the classroom? What are some ways you do that virtually? Just some different things and why that's so important. Challenger safety. And again, this is maybe kind of difficult to think through, but I want you to think through some ways that we could possibly do this, okay? We have Moodle, okay. So that creates challenger safety by itself? Okay, I got you. And so again, when we're thinking about our assignments, tests, anything that we're teaching, lectures, how do you create challenger safety? How do you allow students to say like, hey, I think this could be done differently, or I think this could be done better? What are some ways we can do that? So we got to look at Spoodle, okay. Okay, we have Moodle and I create a questionnaire for them to give feedback. Yes. Frequent check-in surveys for feedback. Yes. Okay. So one thing I used to do in class, especially when it was near the end, there were two things I would ask my students to do in the last class. One was to create a SCOT analysis, and then the other one was to write a letter to the next class. And so I would have them write a letter to the next class. I told them not to sign their name to it. And then I would have somebody collect it for me so I could know who turned in what. And what I would have them do is like write down what they liked about the class, what they didn't like about the class, what were the best ways to engage with me, and what they were able to get out of the class. And so I had students write these letters, and I told them to be as honest and candid as possible. And so I would get some great, great feedback as far as, what people would say. And, people are like, oh, this dude loves to like give you mindless trivia and things like that. And I do. That's just my thing. So, but but they were like, he was really helpful and things like that. So again, I knew from there that those were things that they appreciated and I could keep doing. The other thing I did was with that SCOT analysis. Most of you might know it as a SWOT analysis. I changed the weakness to challenges, just to be more affirming. So it's just your strengths, challenges, opportunities, and threats about the class. So I would explain that whole process to them, and I would show them like, hey, you can apply this to pretty much anything in your life. Just thinking about like helping you think through some process and things you need to do. And so that always went really, really well to get them to think through it. And I would have them do it alone by themselves first, and then work as a group to get that information. And those are usually the last two things I would do in every class, besides, thank them for being there and giving back their final assignment. And so from there, it was really, really good to, just get that feedback for myself. And then, okay, how can I, get better at this? What can I incorporate for the next class? They didn't like this assignment. They like this assignment, just going from there. So, just thinking like that. So those are just some things I did. So yeah, questionnaire, get points. Oh, students find an error. That's a good one. Yeah, because then it's like, hey, I'm human, I make mistakes too. And so, you get rewarded if you see certain things that can definitely benefit the rest of the class, right? So yeah. Oh, I like that, Myra. You create a video with one success tip. Dang, I didn't think about that. That's a good one though. Okay, I like that. I like that. All right. So let's look at some and I appreciate y'all doing this with me. Let's see here. Oh, hold on, wait. I gotta go back to the whiteboard because I need to save it. Where's the whiteboard? Save. Okay. So that way I can send that out with the resources when y'all get this back, okay? All right, let's close that. Let's stop in the last piece. All right, so here's some other things with creating challenger safety. Again, one of our faculty members that teach foreign language, they said, encouraging native and heritage speakers to challenge the textbook way of speaking. That's just a way to do that. So, oh yeah, Kara, no, you're good. Let's see here. Model challenging their thought processes too. So what are some ways that you could challenge their thinking without them feeling like, it's detrimental to their identity or whatever they have at that point. Allow students different ways of challenging you. So not just maybe openly in class. There are some students that need to think things through. Maybe they need to email that or text it to you. Maybe they need to see you after class because they don't want to talk in front of the class. But giving them all those ways that they can challenge. So if they hear something that they don't like, asking them to come back and do it. I used to always tell my students too, like if you find some other resources, don't ever believe everything I have to say. If you find some resources that are contradictory, let's talk about it so I can learn from you as well, right? And so I used to, encourage that as much as possible. And I had students like drop off articles and books to help me think through some things that, maybe I said something that, they didn't necessarily agree with. Hey, bring me some resources that say otherwise. I'd be glad to look at it. No matter what, as long as it's not like anything threatening anybody's life, I'll read it, So reduce the status gap. So again, not judging students based on how they may look, things like that. Don't overreact when challenged. This is a very big one. There's a lot of instructors, sometimes even ones that have low self-efficacy, they feel threatened and then, they overreact based on when they're being challenged because they feel like they might get exposed, right? So that's just something that happens. So again, we need to make sure we're checking ourselves. I like this one too. So, sometimes, especially my STEM folks, they think like, oh, a theory is a theory, that's it. But, things have changed over time. We used to think that the sun revolved around us and come to find out we revolve around the sun, showing people those kind of things to show like, hey, this is what really propels us forward is when we can do that. And that's what this is too. So helping people understand that everything doesn't necessarily agree. There's always multiple ways of looking at things. So again, having folks, one thing I do to also encourage folks is, helping them understand that 5 + 4 = 9, but so does 6 + 3. Doesn't mean either way is wrong. It's just two different ways of getting to the same answer. So again, that may happen in whatever we're teaching as well. So let's talk about that, right? Because, life is in the gray. It's not just, one or the other. It's sometime in the middle. So we just got to figure that out as well. Last but not least is create an example when challenging led to something big in your field. So when somebody went against the grain and something big was discovered, can you share that to really encourage people to challenge, to create that challenge of safety? And when people get that, they become more innovative. And that's what we want to try to get to, because again, LinkedIn, they looked at a bunch of different skills that they wanted students to have, and creativity was the biggest one that they want folks to have. So again, but the only way we get creativity is by being more innovative, making a habit of being innovative. The way we become innovative is by having high psychological safety. And so the last one is ask for feedback during class and use that to adjust your teaching. So, not just staying with something by itself. So psychological safety in the classroom is a condition when you feel included, safe to learn, safe to contribute, and safe to challenge status quo, all without fearing being embarrassed, marginalized, ostracized, fear of retribution, any of those things, right? So again, we all long to belong. These are the things that we want. Sometimes I'll get the question like, what happens if I'm in a space, maybe my chair is not giving me psychological safety? How am I supposed to give that to my students? Do what you can, but in order to give any kind of psychological safety and be meaningful about it, you got to be able to try to do these things for yourself, love yourself as much as possible until you can find something better. But definitely, you definitely got to try, because if you can't do it for yourself or do it for others, then nobody's going to take you seriously, okay? And again, we all long to belong. The last thing I would tell you is why psychological safety is so important, because the people that have high levels of psychological safety are usually the happiest. And Harvard does this longitudinal study where they've been following people around for about 75 years and just measuring like what keeps people alive, things like that. And so once you take out like the variables like genetics and things like that, the one thing that keeps people alive is when they have good relationships, okay? So when they have good relationships with others, that actually sustains us longer in life than anything else. So not the people that make the most money, things like that. So the people that have good relationships live longer and happier and more fulfilled lives. The way they get that is by having that psychological safety. So I always tell people, if you can't find the sunshine, be the sunshine as much as possible. But again, we need that psychological safety in the classroom if we really, really, really want to foster learning and fortify what students are learning and we want to push them forward. You got to have that. If you think back to all your times, all the people that ever believed in you, things like that nature, they created some level of psychological safety and you felt that. And so that's what allowed you to prepare forward, okay? I always love the Maya Angelou quote that, people don't ever remember what you said, they never remember what you did, but they always remember how you made them feel. And when you can provide that psychological safety in that environment for them to learn in, they're gonna always remember that, because we all remember our favorite and best teacher. And so sometimes our best teacher wasn't even our favorite, but we remember them because of what they were able to produce for us. And so again, be the person you needed when you were younger, do that for others, and then, just really try to sustain that psychological safety. So I know I was going pretty fast. I do appreciate y'all taking the time to engage with me and really just engage with each other and put some examples out there. I saved the whiteboard, so we're going to save this recording, the whiteboard, and the presentation. We'll get all that sent to you. If you ever want to connect with me and talk about anything you heard, whether it's something you agree with, something you don't agree with, I encourage you to do that, okay? There's my challenge of safety, okay? Trying to create that for you and learner safety. So please contact me. You can either email me, find me on LinkedIn. I'll be glad to have a conversation with you. I'm always trying to learn myself. I don't consider myself an expert, consider myself just have a lot of knowledge. And these are the type of things I like to do. I'm gonna go to last slide and I'll come right back. But these are just two of the resources where a lot of this presentation came from. But that's my information. And again, if you wanna contact me, but you'll get all this when Gracie sends it out, okay? With that being said, any questions, anything anybody want to share, and we can talk about it as a group? Oh, one last thing I got to do. Sorry. Well, I got a question. I feel I've always been on the outside looking in. I feel I belong on the island of misfit toys, so I try to get a feeling my students matter and can be whatever they want to be. Yes, that's definitely true. Yeah, again, we have that power. Sometimes I think people forget that they have that power as far as what they can encourage students with. Oh man, did I really just do that? I did do that. Nope, that's not what I want. Okay, so what I need from all of you is, if you can, fill out this post-assessment. It should take you about 3 to 5 minutes if you can. Anything you want to share, please put that in there. Any other Zoom classes you do like this? Jenny, I probably do way too many. I do a lot of presentations because this, again, I'm an extreme extrovert, so I get my energy from doing this kind of stuff and engaging others and then learning from them and pulling, stuff away. I do a number of things. So if you ever want to talk, I am open to that. I can share different resources, different things like that. I'm always reading things about education, psychology, DEI space, leadership. Those are just the things that always interest me. So I'm always picking up something to read about these things. Like the 2 books I'm reading right now are The Pedagogy of Real Talk by Dr. Paul Hernandez and the 50 Ways to Engage Students. I'm almost done with that one. So that's a good one. I can put, what I'll do is I'll put some other resources in here. And that way, when Gracie sends it off, she could get that all to you. Yeah. Oh, you said put the books back up. Yeah, I'm sorry. There we go. Okay, so Carol Dweck is really good, but I have some information that challenges that as well. So, but it's a really good book to read to really think about how we, move forward and things. So I read that a number of years ago, but this other book, that one on the left, that Timothy Clark, that is something that has resonated with me based on, creating that safety to do what we need to do to push forward. And I appreciate y'all for being sticking with me and being nice and sharing your thoughts and stuff. Please fill out that post-assessment if you can. We need that information to figure out what we can do to get better. Hopefully, and I apologize that it was a hassle at the beginning getting that whiteboard going, but I really do appreciate y'all taking part in that and sharing, things, because then again, colleagues learn best when they can learn from each other. And so when you can see other things, hopefully it gave somebody some ideas to be like, oh yeah, I definitely want to try that and I'm gonna do this and blah, blah, blah. So yes, really, really, really appreciate y'all for being here for that. Yes, thank you, Kara. So yeah, outside of that, I don't have anything else. If you want to stay around and talk, I can stay around and talk. If not, feel free to log off and please do the post-assessment and please be on the lookout. We got a couple of sessions coming in the summer and definitely next fall. We have them planned out. We should be releasing that soon. And then, you can see if there's something else that interests you. We got all kinds of different presentations coming up. So for the summer and the fall. Oh, yeah, Dr. Oh, okay, Dr. McLeod. He's one of my mentors. So yeah, thanks. And Samantha Phillips. I probably have to see a picture. I have to look her up. Okay, Myra, I'll reach out to you soon, and I apologize. I meant to do that sooner, but time got away from me. But we'll talk soon, okay? Jamie, so we'll send that out for the summer and the fall. That'll be coming out in the next week or two. We'll send that out because we want to get that on people's calendars before faculty. Some faculty leave for, especially 9-month faculty, before they leave for the break. We want them to go ahead and get that on their calendars. And so we'll get that out in the next week or two because we just finalized. We're waiting. We just finalized it. We're just waiting on 2 more descriptions for people to refine them. As soon as they refine them, we'll put them out there and we'll get that sent out. So it's more than likely, if it's not the end of this week, it'll definitely be the early next week. We'll get that out, okay? So I hope that answers your question.